Hello Internet, welcome to the channel. My name's Frankie, and in today's video we are returning to our mini Halloween zoo, recently named Phantom Creek. In the last video I asked for some name suggestions and I've chosen this one from Sparrow838. Make sure to go check out her channel, she does amazing videos. And we are going to be taking that name and starting to incorporate it into our zoo. The idea of having a dried up river or creek running through this zoo seems to fit perfectly. So that is what we're doing with this habitat. Today we are building for the Dwarf Caiman, or the Cuvier or Cuvier, I can't actually remember that first word. Whatever the Dwarf Caiman is in this game, we are building for them. Now the initial idea is to place down a large staff building because I love the look of this thing. I love the little veranda-y bit they have on the side of the house with all the ivy growing down it. It just looks super cozy and beautiful. What I'm going to do is delete these windows at the back of the building, replace them with a slightly more sturdy looking piece, and then we're going to have this building be an abandoned watermill. From the East Asia theme, you get a watermill piece. You can either have it spinning on an animation, constantly going, or just the wheel. And I'm going to use that piece, and initially I think of connecting it to the back of this building, play about with that, and it does look pretty cool, but it looks a little bit incomplete. So instead, I also think it's going to fit the theme a bit better of this zoo to have it broken and laying in the dried up riverbed of this creek or river that's going to be running through this zoo. And the idea behind this habitat is obviously it's an abandoned watermill, and for whatever reason part of the river has been blocked up by massive boulders and stones and stuff, and therefore it has kept some water in this part of the river, meaning that our little caimans can have a bit of a swim about. Now, whilst I'm getting on with some of the terrain construction and stuff, I thought I'd give you a little bit of a cautionary tale. You may be able to see that at the bottom of the video we are on year 2 at the moment. At this point in time I've taken out all 3 loans because I wanted these habitats to be far too detailed. Don't do that. After completing this habitat, I end up having to just sit here and wait for 15 years or about an hour of real time just to let me catch up with the money, because I ended up in minus 60 grand worth of debt. So that was not good, and I would definitely suggest you do not do that. In that time, we have our first batch of baby armadillos, and they are absolutely adorable because they don't really look any younger. They are just literally tiny versions of the adults. And even though they're not in the zoo yet, the Dwarf Caiman end up having babies as well whilst I'm waiting for time to pass so I can get my money back. However, there was also another issue. I couldn't afford to hire any more staff or train my staff, and for some reason they weren't efficient enough to fill up the water bowl in the skunk habitat. I kept having to do emergency requests for them to do it, and at some point they just didn't, and both of my skunks died from dehydration. So there's a bit of a cautionary tale for you. Make sure your staff are properly trained, make sure you have enough of them. Even when you only have 3 habitats like this, they are slightly too spaced out for them to be able to manage, unfortunately. So yeah, make sure you're being careful with that. Once I had passed the 15 year or so wait and I had paid back all of my debts and stuff, I was able to start spending a bit of money, and I have hired new keepers and trained all the ones I do have and replaced those skunks. So yeah, right, back to the build. We're travelling back in time to where we are now, and you can see me creating a little raised path area. I want the viewing gallery for this exhibit to be on the side looking down into the river. I think that's quite nice. It's going to be just a raised brick area. I'm going to be using the same twilight building pieces that are on the bottom half of each of the houses, just to help try and make this area quite themed. And I'm going to use that to kind of outline this path so that it doesn't seem quite as random, quite as floaty, because it does look a bit strange without a wall or anything to support it. Then in front of it, and that little hole of grass just in front of the habitat, we're going to fill that with various bits of plant life and stuff, aiming for that dead, scrubby kind of feeling. We definitely want to be focusing on those quite dark greens and the browns and stuff, and then the little pops of colours with a few flowers breaking through here and there. On the front we are doing the brick wall, like I just said, about using the twilight pieces to try and marry up the theme. And then we're also going to use the twilight fence, which I really like. The twilight wooden fence is basically just wooden planks stuck together. It looks like something out of a kid's book, like it could have been from Winnie the Pooh or something. I think this fence is really, really cute. I'm not entirely sure why I feel that way, but I'm going to use that just to line the top of it to ensure that none of our guests can just vault over the top and dive into the caiman habitat, because believe it or not, that is a health and safety risk. You do not want people swimming with caimans. They might be dwarf caimans, but they're still pretty dangerous. If after almost 6 minutes you are still here for some reason and you haven't subscribed to the channel already, I would encourage you to potentially do so. What benefit will it give to you? Well, I will continue to ramble at you for a little bit, and I'll be making even more little exhibits and habitat videos for you to enjoy and hopefully inspire you in your own Planet Zoo builds. And it'll make me feel like I have more friends, which is always a bonus. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so I would love if you were one of that 1,000. Thank you so much, and let's continue with the video. Now, look at this fence. You see what I'm saying? It's adorable. Just round the corner from here, I have the idea of creating a bridge that goes over the top of the river. I just think it's going to add a little bit more dimension to it, make it look a bit more interesting, especially as it's dried up. It's going to be pretty cool to have the water on one side of the bridge and then just a dry riverbed with a few puddles here and there on the other side. Next up, I really struggled with trying to make a bridge and contemplated throwing my PlayStation out of the window, so I'm going to skip that bit and move on to adding a lovely little entrance to the bridge, which is just one of the Twilight blueprints, but I removed the side pieces so that it's literally just this canopy over the top of the bridge, forming a lovely little archway. Now it's time to make sure that we had some kind of barrier running under the bridge to ensure that this exhibit habitat thing actually has a barrier, and we go for the iron fence from the Twilight pack, and it is really spiky, but if a guest falls off and lands on it, that's their fault, not mine, so I don't really care. It's going to allow water to flow through it pretty easily, which is the point. Here you can see me creating a little blockade of massive rocks, and then we go along the river just kind of adding a little bit of texture by sinking various shaped rocks into the riverbed. It just adds a little bit more life, a little bit more interest, and makes it look a lot cooler. And of course, if we're going for a nice kind of dry, abandoned village look, we can't have the bottom of this river looking like it's covered in lush grass. Instead, we need to replace it all with soil and make it look kind of dry and ick. Even though there is going to be water in this area, it's important to make sure the textures are all correct. I'm just adjusting the wheel that I spoke about earlier, making it look more like it's fallen off the building, and we're going to add various pieces of timber as well and lay them down on the ground just to make it look as if those support structures had broken as well. I'm going to pop a mesh fence around the back of this habitat, something that we can easily conceal with thick plant life and stuff, and we've also got a glass barrier running under the blocks that block up the river, just so that we are keeping the water in. It was a bit difficult to keep it in on the other end, so I ended up just not doing it and have it free flow out, which is fine. We'll make sure that it does dry up at some point that way in the future. We're also going to add a little bit of the back of this habitat where we can have our staff buildings and stuff, because the keeper hut is way too far away at the moment, so we need a bit more easy access. And we're also going to have a wind turbine back there because we can no longer rely on the electricity from the entrance. Now we're getting on to the last steps of any habitat build, and that is to start introducing some of the enrichment items, the feeding items and stuff. We need all of the food related objects to be on the side of the river that the keeper can access, and then after that it's time to add all the plants, which is lovely. It's also time to make it a bit more light because working in the dark isn't the best. We are going to primarily focus the thicker coverage at the back of the habitat to try and mask that mesh fence, as I spoke about earlier. I'm quite lucky that these animals do like quite a lot of coverage. I'm quite surprised by that, but I'm very happy with it. We're going to use a lot of the brambles at the back. That's going to be the primary way of covering the fence with massive bramble bushes. Going to focus some reeds around the rock outcrops and the river and stuff, and we're just going to make sure that this is a lovely, luscious looking habitat for our little dwarf caimans. Now I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you enjoy the rest of the adding of the plants, and that includes outside of the habitat as well, the decorating out the front and stuff. And then I'll come back to talk about some more bits in a few minutes. I have returned to talk about some of the last touches to this habitat, and one of them is the lighting. In the riverbed at the bottom of the river, I placed a few of the aquatic wall lamps just to give a bit of underwater lighting, and amongst the bushes at the back I'm going to place some of these large mushrooms or toadstools from the Twilight pack to add a bit of atmospheric lighting at the back as well. Something to really kind of set the atmosphere. Now, something else I did that was pretty cool, this little plant area at the front of the habitat, if you angle and layer a bunch of mushrooms up against a tree, like log, branch, tree stump, you get a really cool effect. So I had fun with that as well. What you see me doing now is at the top of the river where the water starts, I want to create kind of an overflow pipe where some of the water has been coming out and filling this river. That has long ago dried up. That is the reason that this water is no longer fed, while this river is now partially at least dry. Main reason I did this is because I didn't want to extend the river under the path. It's just too much work. So I came up with an excuse for the river to kind of just end at some point, and this is that reason. To create this, all I did was create a circle out of quarter circle wooden pieces and then stretch some metal bars above them and just make sure that we have quite a few layers of this circle as well, and it creates an excellent looking sewage pipe thingy-majiggy that I can then just sink into the side of the riverbank, and it looks perfect. As a finishing touch to this habitat, I'm going to change the water colour to a lovely green from the Amazon, just to give it that kind of dirty look to it, even though it is full of life and richness. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and make sure to subscribe to the channel because my next video is going to be a very particular little hippopotamus, I think we are continuing this water theme as voted for by you guys on the community tab. It seems like Little Moodeng is going to be winning. So we might be building a pygmy hippo habitat in the next video, which should be out on Monday if this one is coming out on Saturday like I planned for it to. Thank you so much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And until next time, I'll see you later.